Online, I'm Comet the Duck. I've been learning how to chat with God since the end of December 2022. At first, I wasn't sure if I was hearing Him or just talking to myself. Honestly, I'm still not always sure, but I kept going. I kept trying. One thing I never expected? That I could see His body language. It sounded impossible. I mean, He's invisible. But one day, it happened. On the day the story starts, I was still working, but I was also packing, getting ready to move to a different state. I was in the spare bedroom, feeling overwhelmed by books. I had 3 shelving units, each 3 feet wide and 6 feet tall, crammed with 2 layers of books. Then there were piles of books all over the floor. Was I a book hoarder? I told myself no, because at least the piles didn't block access to the bookshelves. But here's the thing. The last time I moved, driving the overloaded moving truck through the mountains was scary. Going downhill, I could feel the truck was fighting the brakes, reluctant to obey. I didn't want to do that again. This time I had options, because God had recently been teaching me how to sort and let go of things that didn't bring me joy. Suddenly I felt excited about having far fewer books. After all, the town where I was going had a library, and bookstores too. I really didn't need to keep all my books. It was a Friday evening. I was tired, but I wanted to start going through the books to get a feel for what I was dealing with. This stack? The books were so thin they didn't take up much space. The stories were exciting. I would definitely keep those. What about this series with blue covers? I used to like them, but as I leafed through the pages, I realized that I didn't anymore. Maybe I could give them away? But I'd had them since I was a kid. I looked carefully through several more of those blue books. I made up my mind. Yes, I was sure I did not want to keep them. Hurrah! 14 books to give away? That would really help lighten the load. The next day I got started on sorting. Me? I've never enjoyed sorting or giving things away. But God loved sorting, and He was excited about this move. I found myself enjoying the task too, because it was fun to share in His joy. Thanks to the preview, I already had a good idea where many books would go. The stack of thin ones? In the packing box. The black and red set? Give that away. My mind wandered. Half of me was in the spare bedroom, blinds closed, deciding whether a particular book brought me joy. The other half of me was daydreaming, standing on a hill of chartreuse green grass. I could feel the wind on my skin. I was enjoying the blue skies and the sunshine of God's nature. 1 packing box done, and 2 giveaway boxes. That was going well. Still daydreaming of sunlight and grass and hills, I reached the series of blue books. I'd already looked them over carefully yesterday. I started putting them in the giveaway box. 1, 2. The room darkened just a bit. A cloud passing in front of the sun? That was strange. When I went outside this morning, the sky had been perfectly blue. Curious, I walked over. I lifted one of the blinds and peeked outside. Not a cloud in sight. So how had the light dimmed? I stared suspiciously at the bright light bulb. Its light was necessary because of the closed blinds, but it stared back at me very steadily. I looked around. Why had the light dimmed? Then I realized there was a thin cloud shading the sun, but it wasn't in the real room. It was a thin cloud that cast a faint shadow over the grass in my imagined landscape. Somehow, that shadow dimmed the real room just a bit too. That was strange. Even when I knew that the source of the slight dimming was imaginary, my real eyes continued to see the room as less bright than it had been a few moments ago. It had to be a signal from God. And the moment I realized that, I found that I had no trouble understanding it. It wasn't strong, he wasn't angry. The shadow was on the hill next to me, not on me. He wasn't upset with me. He was telling me that he disagreed with something that was going on right now. What was I doing? I looked down at the book in my hand, one of the blue books. God didn't like it that I was giving away the blue books? Well then, first I needed to undo what he didn't agree with. I placed the book I was holding back on the shelf, and for good measure, the 2 books that were bound in blue that were already in the giveaway box, and I put those back on the shelf too. There, action undone. I focused on him. I wasn't sure what he wanted me to do next. At that moment, it seemed natural to me to turn to him and ask for clarification. Would you like me to look through these blue books again? And this time I heard words. He affirmed, if you would. Wow, he was so polite. For a moment I paused, such smooth communication. Then I turned back to my task. I knew I didn't want those blue books, but maybe there was something I missed. Perhaps when I looked at them more closely, I'd discover a favorite book that I'd overlooked. I didn't think so, but since he asked, I would look extra carefully at all the blue books again. I picked up the first one. I looked at the title. Then I opened to the title page, and I read the title and the author's name. I read the first few lines of the story. Then I turned to the middle and read a bit, and then I turned towards the end and read a bit more. No, truly, there was nothing about this story that I wanted to keep. I slowly put the book in the giveaway box, focusing on him. I felt no objection. I repeated my actions with more of the books. I thought about speeding up, but I didn't. I wanted to respect what he asked of me. When I opened the 3rd book, a piece of paper fell out. A note? I picked it up. No, it wasn't a note. It was just a bit of money. I didn't care about a few dollars. I placed them on the shelf, and I kept focusing on the book. He had asked me to look at the books, and that is what I would do. Next. Next. 3 more times I found a bit of cash and put it on the shelf without really looking at it. I kept my focus on the books. Finally, I was looking at the last book, completely puzzled because I hadn't found even one special book. I looked through the last one even more carefully. No, it didn't bring me joy. I carefully inched the book in the direction of the giveaway box. I sensed no disagreement. I placed it in the box. Still no objection. I slowly withdrew my hand. No clouds, no dimming of the light. I frowned. I had just looked at every blue-covered book, and each one was now in the giveaway box. Did he really stop me for just a few dollar bills? That was odd. I looked at the bills more closely. They weren't $1 bills. They were $20 bills. And when I finished adding them up, I had $400. Wow. Okay, $400 was definitely something worth noticing. I didn't particularly need that amount right then, but the fact that I had found something significant in those books, that was undeniable, real physical proof of our communication, and that meant so much to me. I know that God often works in layers. On that day, God gave me solid proof of our communication, and that was incredibly special. But I figured that he probably also had something in mind for the cash, so I didn't put it in my wallet. I kept it separate. I would hold on to it until he told me what he wanted me to do with it. And he did have something in mind, but that's a story for another day. Wow. Hours later, I was still stunned. I glanced at the empty bookshelf. I had placed hundreds and hundreds of books in giveaway boxes, but something began nagging at me. I felt a need for greater logical accuracy. If I was going to claim that God pointed me so directly to the only 4 books with money, I had to know, were there other books with money or important things hidden that had been missed? If there was, it would completely change the picture. I had to know. I wasn't doubting God. I wanted to check my facts rather than make assumptions. But I didn't really want to empty all those boxes again. There were so many books. Then I had an idea and I grinned. Some days later, I found myself in a classroom with all the giveaway boxes of books, ready to give them to some young friends. Before I parted with the books, I told them my amazing story, and I asked them to check the books. With many hands to help, every single book was soon checked. Nothing. Not one single stray dollar in any of the books. And they helped me count close to 400 books. 4 books out of 400. And God had pointed out those exact books to me. Not only that, the cash was in books that I had already checked the night before. I had found nothing in them, and I would not have checked them again. This was a communication that he initiated, a suggestion that I could not have anticipated, pointing me to something I had no idea was there. And the result was real, something physical that I could touch and use. But there was more. His communication, that shadow like a cloud on a nearby hill, it reminded me very much of a gentle gesture or a very light frown. It was like body language. And suddenly I stopped. God had body language? Someone that I could not see had body language that I could see? Wow, that was stunning, amazing. And best of all, I had proof. I had exactly $400 worth of proof that I saw and understood God's body language. I couldn't believe it. But here was my solid proof, green and white and crisp in my hands. This dialogue between us was a turning point for me. It was a proof of our ability to communicate and to communicate without words. And I couldn't forget that or overlook it. To this day, I'm not always certain that every word I think he says is really from him. Some of them might be my own creation, and I've learned to live with a degree of uncertainty. But on that day, that was him. I'm filled with wonder. It's possible for me to chat with him, and it's not just me initiating conversations. Our chatting is not just words, it has layers and includes subtle details as complex as body language. And he sent me real physical proof that I wasn't imagining things. Joy filled my heart then, and it still does as I retell this story. Thank you for listening to this true story.